Hello, and welcome to another edition of Coffee Talk with immigration attorney Brian D. Lerner. We just finished the July 4th holiday. I hope everybody enjoyed themselves. It certainly is a remembrance of the Revolutionary War and how it was won and all that was fought for to get the freedoms that we enjoy today in the United States, and to understand why so many people still yet want to come to the United States from around the world. So anyways, in this particular video, I'd like to talk about the different employment preferences. A lot of times people think the only way to come to the U.S. is through family. You know, whether you're married to a U.S. citizen or you have, some lawful permanent resident relative, whatever it is, that's the only realistic way to come here, and that's not true. There's a whole world of employment-based preferences and employment paths in which to come to the United States. So don't fret if you do not have a family member in the U.S., or if you do and they're not able to petition you for whatever reason. The employment-based preferences are the way to go. Now, there are 5 employment-based preferences, okay? And each one has its own particular um, mannerisms and rules, and what you can and can't do. And I've actually done over the last however many years I've been doing this, individual videos on each of the preferences and what's required, and I have more to come. But I thought that I would devote this video to the overall explanation of all the preferences without really going into a lot of detail on each of the particular preferences, but at least to give an idea of what the employment preferences are, so that if you're watching this and you or your family or someone you know wants to try to come to the U.S., they might say, well, I fall under EB2 or EB3. Maybe I can try that. So let me get to it. Now, EB1, that is without doubt the preference that everybody would want to get into, but it is quite difficult in which to do it. Okay, as many of you may know, there is a visa waiting for many years on the different employment preferences, and depending on the preference, depending on the country, the wait is longer. Now, with EB1, generally speaking, there never has been a wait of visas on this category, and there most likely will never be, because it is basically for the cream of the crop, the top-notch people who can fall into this category and are able to put the petition. Now, honestly, if you want someone or an attorney to tell you that, an EB1 is a slam dunk, easy piece of cake, guaranteed type of visa petition, you really ought to say adios amigo and go to another attorney, because, excuse me, there is no way that the EB1 can be guaranteed. Okay, it is quite difficult to prepare, but it certainly is doable. Okay, now the EB1 is divided into different categories. Okay, basically it's EB1A, EB1B, EB1C, and so forth. And what is it? Well, the categories that fall into the EB1, one is called an extraordinary ability alien, and it's really what it says. If you are at the top of your field, whatever it happens to be, then you can try to do the EB1, and you don't need a petitioner. There's no company that needs to petition you in the U.S. You basically have to agree to continue with this type of work, but if you're of the EB1 category, extraordinary ability alien, chances are, you'll come in, get the green card, and you'll either get a very lucrative offer, or you'll be able to start your own business, whatever it is, in the type of business you're at. So, again, I've done particular videos on the extraordinary ability alien category, but what you want to do is narrow the field you're in. So if, let's say, you're an engineer, okay, if you just try to come in as an EB1 as an engineer, that's not happening. Okay, so let's say you're in, um, waste management engineering. Okay, that's quite a bit more narrow than just engineering itself. But then let's say under waste management, you have developed or you work in a particular area of design that actually makes the stuff flow through easier and whatever it is you do. Um, that would be the field that you would try to get under the EB1. Now, just as a side note, and it's really a matter of money, but you can apply for the regular, which I'm going to get to in a minute, for example, an EB2, and you can do an EB1 at the same time. I mean, they don't care. Immigration does not care. It's like, two horses going around the track. The one that gets to the finish line first is going to win. Okay? So what you want to do is you want to make sure that you are sufficiently able to apply for this one. Either call me for a consultation or get an employment-based immigration attorney that really knows what they're doing and see if you apply for this. Now, there's another category of EB1 which also needs no sponsor, basically, and you are able to do this type of petition if you are a business person. So if you happen to have a company that you are running in a foreign country, it doesn't matter what country, there's no limitation, and you want to open up a branch office in the US and you want to run the company here, then the multinational manager visa under the EB1 category, that can be for you. And you don't actually have to own the company. You could be, running or CEO of a company that company decides to open up the branch office here in the U.S. Whatever it is, a lot of times people will come in on the L1 first and then do the EB1, although it is doable to do it, from the outset, especially if your children are going to age out, if you need to get the green card quicker, and so forth. So again, I'm not giving you any impression that it's easy to do a multinational manager petition, but it certainly is doable. So if you're a business person, this is the one you may want to look at. Okay, and then the other category of EB1 would be outstanding professors and researchers, and if you happen to get a tenured position offer at a university, this one would be for you. So those are the three highly preferential subcategories of the EB1. Now, what's the EB2? Okay, well, the EB2, you definitely need a petitioner, and basically you would fall under, there's different categories of the EB2. For example, you can show you are exceptional ability. That is different than extraordinary ability, and I could do a whole video on that, which maybe that's what I'll do next time, the difference between exceptional and extraordinary. But you also or could have a master's degree in a particular area, and the job itself requires the use of the master's degree. Now, with the EB2, generally you need to have a PERM, which is the labor certification. That's where you have a job offer and you go through the whole process to determine whether or not there is a U.S. citizen or someone authorized in the U.S. to work on that particular position, and assuming that all goes through, and you do then what's called the I-140 petition to show you're qualified, then after that you can do adjustment or consular processing. So it's a several step process for the EB2. It does take longer, but the EB2 generally takes quite a few less years of waiting time than the EB3. Okay, what I'm telling you on the EB2, again, your exceptional ability or master's degree, minimum required for the job. You can also apply for what's called a national interest waiver, which is where you can show why it is in the interest of the United States to not apply for a perm. So there's different ways to do this. But if, in this case, let me say if you happen to be from India under EB2, there's several year waiting list because there's a lot of people from India with master's degrees that want to come into the U.S. But again, if that's all you have, EB2 is better than EB3 because it's less time of waiting. So that essentially is the EB2. Now the EB3 is basically either unskilled labor or which require a bachelor's degree or something that requires at least 2 years experience. So essentially for all intents purposes the EB2 is similar to the EB3 except not as much education is required and you don't have to show as much. Now the waiting list of course is much longer on the EB3 than the EB2. So if you can get in the EB2 because of your education and qualifications, well, by all means, go ahead. Of course, you do have to realize, for example, let's say you're in computer science. If you do an EB2 on computer science, you might be looking at, $45,000 a year salary or something in that neighborhood. Sorry, EB3. Now, an EB2, which requires the master's degree, you might be looking at a 70,000. So there's a big difference in the wage that would be required from an EB2 versus an EB3. So naturally, you want to make sure your employer is willing to pay that, or else what's the use of going in an EB2 and waiting less time if at the end of the day the employer says, no, 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 I'm not going to pay that. So if you happen to, again, either have a job, or a bachelor's degree, or something requires 2 years experience, or honestly, if you're unskilled, the EB3 category is where you fall. And again, it's the 3 major step process. It's the perm, it's the I-140, and then the adjustment or consulate processing. So that, in sum, I didn't spend much time on the EB3 because, again, it's similar to the EB2, but I can tell you for most people, the majority of people, they fall under the EB3 category. Okay, now let's go to EB4. The EB4 is a special kind of category. It deals with, for example, VAWA, so people who have been abused by their U.S. citizen or lawful permanent resident spouses or parent. It also deals with special immigrant religious workers. So if you happen to fall under those 2 categories, you do EB4. Now EB4s don't have really visa waiting times either, so those are much quicker to get in under, but unfortunately you have to be, especially if you're in the VAWA situation, which is Violence Against Women Act, if you've been abused and beaten and sexually abused, you can fall under this category. But then on the other side, you don't have to wait to apply for residency if it's approved. Now what about the EB5, the last category? You might think that's the easiest, but it's not. It's actually a lot easier than it used to be in that the EB5 is the investment category. So if you have $1 million investment, you want to come to the U.S., create your own company, and create jobs. I have lots of videos on the EB5. Then that's the way to do it. And also, as a subcategory, if you have only 500,000, or that's the way you want to go, you will find a regional center you want to invest in. Sometimes you get your money back, sometimes you get it with profit, sometimes you don't. That's why you have to do a due diligence. But the EB5 is great to come in, and for your spouse, your children, and so forth, all of them can essentially tag along, assuming the children are under 21 and unmarried. That in a nutshell, and believe me, that was a quick nutshell, is the EB1 through EB5 categories, and more or less what it would take to qualify. So if you want to go forward, and if you like the video, click like, but certainly you can email me and or call to make an appointment for consultation, and then I'll be able to tell you what you qualify for. Okay, more on the coming videos.